Just before we begin, I'd like you all to join me with reciting the 3 times homage to our teacher. Please join me with your palms joined together. Homage to the Supreme Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to the Supreme Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to the Supreme Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. All right, thank you. Just before we begin, just like you, all of us to settle at where we are. I know some of us has been traveling during this season, so take your time. If you just come back from work or you're about to start work today, tell yourself that we are right here, right now. We are coming here together to share the Dharma, to listen, to share, and to reflect on the walk of our life with more than 80 people online now. Feel your feet touching comfortably on the ground, and knowing that your bodies are relaxed. Straight your back. Try to reduce anything that catch your attention around you. Okay, slowly take a deep breath. Slowly breathe out. One more time, take a deep breath. Breathe out. Okay. Thanks for doing that. Just give me 10 seconds, okay? All right. Sorry about that. That little fan I'm having behind me was making so much noise that I was just actually reminding myself, get away all your something that got your attention. All right, distractions all out. So turn it off. All right, welcome back. Now we are going to the 4th class of our Mahayana Buddhism. We're focusing on Chinese Buddhism. So we've been talking about what are the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, right? That is something that we need to know because they are all the same across different schools in Buddhism. And last week before we ended, we spent about half of the class talking about, all right, what actually is Mahayana, right? We even asked you to share something about what you think when you're comparing Mahayana Buddhism to other different type of Buddhism. Why do we call Mahayana in this case? Right, we did some discussion on that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, why the Mahayana Buddhism began in the first place. I think we are not going into the details of all the facts or the historical facts with the names and people, but we are more going to try to discuss a little bit about why under that scenario of when so many other Buddhist schools, most dominated by Theravada Buddhism at that time, and why we have another almost, well, I would say very different genre of Buddhism that appeared at that period, that is about 100 years before the Common Era. What was happening and why did that happen? I think that is more related to how redefine ourselves. If we want to learn about Mahayana Buddhism or other type of Buddhism, what are we going to expect? All right. So beginning of Mahayana Buddhism, if you look at most of the textbooks, they usually tell you that they are generally two different ways of explaining why we have something called Mahayana Buddhism that begin. Right. First of all is we call it lay dissatisfaction. We touched about it a little bit last week. So lay dissatisfaction means that, well, initially after the Nirvana of the Buddha, for quite a long period of time, Buddhist practice was mainly focusing on monastic people. Right, so lay people are more like doing much more on supporting or giving dana. So, and of course, when time passed, when Buddhism spread more to other places, something started to happen. So there are two, I would say, two scenarios that we need to take into account. First is what I call the fate of the stupa. Fate is something, I would say faith is a very common religious term. It says that you believe in something, right? Faith, you could, well, if you are non-Buddhist, if believe in God, so faith is your God. But sometimes use the word faith in Buddhism, I wouldn't think it's a wrong word to use. Faith just means something that what you truly believe to be the truth for yourself or for the universe. So at that time, it's interesting enough, there's a faith in the stupa. So what is a stupa? We're going to go into to talk about that in a little moment. So interesting thing, the stupa became a focal point of devotion. So many people started to do prostration, even to go to visit all different kind of stupas that were erected around, especially in Northeast India. So people go there for pilgrimage, offering flowers, incense. How do we know that? Because there's so many evidence that shows that we have inscriptions on the stupa, like a structure, stone structures that have inscriptions, and then we have many archaeological findings at sites like Sanchi and Amaravati. Okay, what is a stupa? I'd like to show you a very brief video, which is about just a few minutes. Okay, let me share it with you. Then you have a much better picture of what stupa is like. Should be this one. Oh, no, not this one. Sorry, where is it? Give me 1 second. I think this is the one. All right. I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to click the same one. Did you see the full screen of a stone?
Yes, Shifu.
Correct? Okay, I'm going to play it.
Buddhism is one of the world's oldest religions, and this sandstone relief is an example of early Buddhist art that dates circa the 2nd century BCE. This relief depicts a domed architectural monument surrounded by followers of the Buddhist religion and two celestial beings who sweep down from above. The monument where they demonstrate their faith is an important structure in the Buddhist religion called a stupa. What is a stupa? A stupa is a monumental reliquary mound or an architectural monument like the one seen in this relief that contains a sacred relic. A relic is a special religious object, like a pinky bone of a religious leader or something special they owned or touched. Although stupas can be found all over the world where Buddhism is practiced and come in different shapes and sizes, the stupa featured in the relief is similar to the earliest existing stupa in India, the Great Stupa at Sanchi. The Great Stupa at Sanchi is a solid brick-faced dome that was constructed over relics of the Buddha, making it a sacred site for worshippers who walk clockwise around the stupa to perform worship. In this relief, the followers surrounding the stupa are the same man and woman repeated 3 times, twice walking around the stupa and once kneeling to either side, to suggest their ritual movement around the monument. The celestial or Buddhist heavenly beings hovering above descend with flower garlands to adorn the sacred structure. The handprints at the base of the stupa symbolize the act of touching the stupa by followers of the Buddhist religion. This relief originally decorated a stupa like the Great Stupa at Sanchi. Stupa reliefs like this one were didactic in function, meaning they were used to teach followers about the religion. In Buddhist art, a stupa is not just a sacred architectural structure protecting the Buddha's relics, but it is also an aniconic symbol of the Buddha's parinirvana, which is a state of enlightenment after death when the Buddha achieved liberation from suffering and from being reborn or reincarnated again.
Okay. Let me back to sharing my screen. Well, what is stupa, right? In short, stupa is a monument that used to represent the Buddha, and inside we actually store the relics of the Buddha. So we know that for at least for a few hundred years after the Buddha's nirvana, there was no statue of the Buddha being made. So it followed by common sense that when people started to remember the Buddha, so the stupa itself became a symbol that people would go there to think about the teachings that the Buddha taught, and to actually to go to it's like a sacred place that people go to make prostration to the stupa where the relics of the Buddha was actually stored. So how do we do that? So we believe that the very act of many lay people started to have the belief of faith in the stupa itself, and when people gathered around the stupa, so a new form of Buddhism actually began. So this is one of the 2 theories that is very well accepted, that actually the erection or the building of many of the stupas around India actually gave birth to the Mahayana Buddhism, right? Because many lay people started to gather around there, and they have a lot of rituals, started to have rituals and many ways to remember and to learn the actual teaching by the Buddha. So this is one of the 2 theories that tell us how Mahayana began. All right, so but we are still practicing. We are still practicing the prostration, or I would say making the stupa a sacred place. I'm going to show you some of the photos I took during my pilgrimage trip to India just a few months ago. So I went there with my brother monk, Yu Zhe Fa Shi, and also with a group of our friends and Buddhists. So this is where we believe that this is where the place where the Buddha was cremated, and so they built a huge stupa. What we're seeing now is it's more than 2,000 years. So the remain of what we see at the stupa structure. So we gather around, we make prostration, like as we saw from the video. We walk around we go around stupa for 3 rounds, chanting the name of the Buddha, or whatever way that depending on your practice. So what we do is people are offering flowers. We're really concentrating on chanting the name of the Buddha or doing your own practice. You walk around holding flowers in your hand, remembering how the teaching of the Buddha had basically changed the world, changed us, most importantly. And then this is how the flower looks like. We put the flowers and we put a lotus also around the stupa as a way for us to kind of have a conversation with the Buddha, which is our great teacher. All right, and this is also another stupa, right? But what's special about this stupa was it was built in different dynasties, so it was built over and over again on top of each other. So when they dig out to the very inner part of the stupa, they actually found the relics of the Buddha, which nobody would have known before. So now, of course, the relics is not there anymore. They moved to the museum, but this site alone, it just shows that how it was actually being used for hundreds or even thousands or even over thousands of years, for it to store the relic of the Buddha and for people to come and make prostration. Okay, so this is one of the very important sites in India that we still go there to pay our prostration. So this is at the place where the Buddha achieved. This is where the Buddha went for the great nirvana. So what we did was there was a ritual. We are holding a long piece of cloth for it to put on the statue of the Buddha. So we went into the building. There is we will call that the Buddha, which is in his nirvana pose, and then we all gather around to put the yellow cloth on the Buddha itself. And that was I think the moment when that happened was really touching. Yeah, I think everybody was kind of, really getting close to the Buddha and going to the real historical place. So now you can imagine, even after thousands of years, we still gather around the stupa to perform what we do as to express our gratitude, and also to pay prostration to the great teacher who once walked the earth and who gave such great teachings. So just imagine, right, how this ritual was started like almost 2,000 years ago, that gave birth to Mahayana Buddhism. Of course, nowadays, people who go to do the pilgrimage trip, they all come from different walks of life, different Buddhism, not only Mahayana, also Tibetan Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Bhutanese Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Korean Buddhism, we all gather here. And then it's like, it's really a united nation. Like when you go there, you will see people from all walks of life just gather here to pay their respect to the Buddha. This is how it looks like, getting a closer look. And okay, this is a Bodhi Gaya. Yeah, this is one of the most well-known statue in the world, Bodhi Gaya, where the Buddha, just to remember the Buddha where he got enlightened. And so it's where we are, of course, taking a group photo in front of the. This is also a stupa, right? But it's also a bigger stupa. When you go inside, you can actually go and walk around and come out again from the stupa itself. So offering flowers, yeah, we all take turn, and of course we go with a big group. Offering flowers means that it's a basket of flowers. It's not just one or two flowers, it's like a whole basket. And there's also because it's Chinese Buddhism, we bring our mala beads, yeah, we call the nian zhu, right? So everybody will love to. When we come to a sacred place, we like that to be blessed by the Buddha. So we pack all our mala beads together, and then we ask someone to represent us to go near to the Buddha statue and get it blessed. So these are some of the rituals that we develop as we do our pilgrimage trip. This has been practiced for years and years. And of course, this is where the Buddha. This is a place to remember where the Buddha was born. Yeah, the Lumbini Garden. So we went in there, and then we put the statue of the Prince Siddhartha. Yeah, and then we do the bathing of the Siddhartha of Siddhartha Gautama, and then we make prostration. So it was a very quiet and the atmosphere in the morning, it was chill. The sun was bright, but the temperature was nice. So this kind of activity, this kind of practice really give you the idea that you are getting closer to where the Buddha was born. So, and then we burn candles. I think this is at Bodh Gaya. And then we burn candles, we arrange the candles to the shape of this. This is a Dharma wheel, and then we have different shape as well. So I think we are the biggest group that make the most offering of candle on that day. And we burn a candle, everybody make their wishes, and that is a pilgrimage trip. So, as you can see, that was a fate that all started from the fate of the stupa, which is still being practiced today by all schools of Buddhism. But it was one of the theories that says that how the Mahayana Buddhism began was because of the faith in the stupa itself. So that's how it is, right? And another thing is the fate of the Dharma. We call it the fate of the Dharma. Why is that called the fate of the Dharma? Because they're also a group of, especially for lay practitioners, instead of venerating, the stupa itself, the structure itself, but the scriptures, the teachings, especially the one that were crafted on the palm leaf or those being written down, these are called the words of the Buddha, and we call the scriptures today. These actually teaching of the Buddha will become venerated, right? Especially the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, which is, as we know, Lotus Sutra, right? People, nowadays we even have to copying them, then we preserve them, and then we read the sutra during our ritual, our ceremony. Is a way to practice the Dharma, right? So sometimes in Mahayana Buddhism, we even have the habit of making the books of the Dharma, right, the one that we're going to chant, become an object of it's like a sacred object, right? I remember when I first went to the temple, the first time I was participating in the ceremony, like the Sufu always remind us, hold your books like this, right, with both hands, right? Don't put it on the floor, right? Don't put it below your waist, right? There's some of the rules. So the reason behind is treat the book of the Dharma as the Dharma itself. The Dharma represents a Buddha, so the book also in one way represents the Buddha, which is an object of merit, right? Almost like the relic itself. So Mahayana Buddhism has this kind of characteristics, right? Symbolism is part of it. So fate of the Dharma. So as you see, this is a palm leaf, right? So they are like a sacred objects. Actually, this is still being used, right? This is written in Sanskrit. You put it out piece by piece. Actually, people just read from left to right. This is actually written in Sanskrit. I don't remember what text it is. I think this is the Heart Sutra. Anyway, okay, So what we do is this is one of the most famous temple in Kyoto. Right? I just went there. So what we do is in this temple, people will do as we just talked about, you actually copy the sutra, right? Copy the sutra is a way of practice. First, of course, to calm your mind, to practice the concentration. And Mahayana Buddhism, we also believe that copying the sutra actually creates merit, accumulates merit. And now you may ask why, why copying text we have merit? Well, there are some explanation on that. First one is you imagine in thousands of years ago, there were no photocopy machine. Like copying text actually needs a lot of manpower, and in order to spread Buddhism, you actually need a lot of manpower to copy the text. And paper, pen, they were very expensive and very rare. So copying text become one of the merits, we call it merits, that can help to spread the Dharma. So in times, when you have to copy text, actually it becomes a belief that you're going to accumulate merit for the better in your future life. But today, if you want to explain what is accumulation of merit in this sense is when you copy the text, right? Actually, you are reading the text from the beginning to the end. If you don't believe me, now after today's class, you go back and if you know Chinese, you can copy the Xing. Even though you can memorize Xing from the beginning, 观自在菩萨行深般若波罗蜜多. So you can memorize it, right? No problem. But trust me, reading it and copying it give you a completely different perspective on the meaning of the text itself. Copy one stroke at a time, right? Or you can copy English, right? One word at a time. And you can tell that the connection between you and the text and the meaning of the Buddhist or of the Buddha's teachings somehow is more profound, yeah, and your memory becomes stronger as well. So for me, this is an actual merit of copying text, right? Because nowadays we don't need you to copy the text and to pass to other people. People say, I don't want it, don't, I have too much stuff, don't give me more paper. Go and recycle, don't keep it. No, we don't need that anymore today, right? People have digital text. Well, nowadays, for me, accumulation of merit is because the very action of copying it, you are fostering your memory, and then you are actually reflecting on the meaning of the text when you're copying it. So these are some of the very important characteristics of Mahayana Buddhism, right? The stupa, the statue, right? Go around it, and then the text itself. So how did Mahayana Buddhism begin? These are two of the theories that talks about because of the practice of the people have changed, and slowly it formed a new form of Buddhism called Mahayana emerged because of a new way of practice among the lay people. Okay, these are the two theories I want to share with you. Of course, not everyone will agree with the two theories, right? And there was a famous scholar who said that no, it's not from the lay people who actually started the Mahayana Buddhism. It's actually a reform movement inside the temple, inside monastic itself. It were the monks themselves who actually slowly have the mind of, a different mind of Mahayana Buddhism and started it from the beginning. So what happened was, they said, initially they were initiated by some of the monks living in the same monastery, yeah? These monks, they live in the same monastery, they observe the same code of conduct, which is called Vinaya, or monastic rules, right? They follow the same rules, they live together, they study together, and according to one of a very important pilgrim, we call it pilgrim, from China who went to India in the 4th century, yeah, he went to India alone, and he recorded what he observed in India. So what he said was, when he was in India, he saw that these are actually some of the monasteries they carve into a mountain, in the rocky mountain, right? They carve into it and become rooms and halls for practicing. So what they saw is, inside these, stone carved monasteries, there were rooms like this, right? Actually, these are like, what each of them is like a cell, like a unit cell lived by a monastic, right? And then you can imagine one door represents, can occupy one monastic, right? So people go in there, live there, they meditate there, they live, they eat, they do all their practices over there. And this hall in the middle is where they discuss and where they have lectures. So this is more like a dorm, right? Or a college at that time, where people practice and live together. So the theory that says that Mahayana Buddhism actually started where Buddhism actually was being practiced, in the monastic themselves, because some monastics started to have different way of thinking, right? Instead of just doing meditation as their main focus, people start to think that, well, spreading Buddhism is also very important. So we should go out to people, reach out more people, practicing the Bodhisattva way of life, right? So that is how Mahayana Buddhism began. Anyway, so that's all I want to talk about, how Mahayana Buddhism began, right? About what shape the characteristic of Mahayana Buddhism that separates us from other traditions. Okay, what is a new, we call it, new ideas in Mahayana Buddhism, right? If you look at the most famous sutra in Mahayana Buddhism, it's called a Heart Sutra, or the Heart Sutra is the shortest one, the shortest sutra, right? It says that there are few characteristics that set apart Mahayana Buddhism from other Buddhism. The first thing is, of course, nothing has an intrinsic nature. What is an intrinsic nature? We know that from the 12 dependent origination, we think that, everything is connected to one another, right? So this is what we believe. Everything is connected to one another, and there's a cause, there's an effect, right? This is how the universe works. But Mahayana Buddhism goes a step further. It says that it emphasizes on emptiness, right? Even though everything has a cause, everything has an effect, but the thing itself, everything, when you go to the ultimate smallest entity of anything, it's empty, right? Empty of what? It's very interesting. If you go to read, let's say the Theravada text, in Pali text, they are actually, some of the theories are very scientific. Like the very idea of atom, right? Actually, more than 2,000 years ago, in Buddhist scriptures, actually not even in some of the in some of the sects of Hinduism, they already have the idea, especially Samkhya and some of the schools who are contemporary to the Buddha, they have already formed the idea of the smallest particle in the universe is atom. As we know, of course, even atom can even have smaller part, but fine, right? They had the idea that when you split anything to the smaller and smaller until you cannot divide anything, the last thing you have is a very solid kind of atom, right? So it's very interesting. This has been debated, I think, for centuries, even among Buddhists ourselves. In the first 1,000 years, when Buddhism started to spread, it's very interesting that some schools like Theravada or Buddhism, they believe that there is a smallest thing, the atom itself actually is true, something that is materialistic, something that you cannot divide anymore. It is real. But one interesting thing is Mahayana Buddhism, we think that no, even that smallest thing in the universe is not even a real thing. It's just something that we imagine it happens. So this form, one of the important characteristic of Mahayana Buddhism is it says that nothing has intrinsic nature. I mean that nothing has really true nature. Even atom itself is not real. So in early Buddhism, they would the Buddhists will tell you that, well, even though a self, a person you see is not real, it's empty, but Dharma were real. Dharma means that if you go to the one of the Dharma is like the smallest thing, at least the whole person may not be real, but a part of me, like the smallest part of me, the atom, the molecule in me, at least they're real. And then Mahayana Buddhism, they say that no, the self and the smallest thing you say is also not real. So it became one of the most important characteristics of Mahayana Buddhism. They say that everything just keeps changing like a flow of water. Right? Imagine now you step into a stream of water, right? You stand in the middle and you let the water flow through your feet. This is how everything is changes. There's no one moment, speed of a second that everything become like fixed. Every time it's just everything flows through you. No moment stays the same. So this is how Mahayana Buddhism understand the self and the Dharma. A self and anything that we think is real, it's just like a water that passes through you. It changes any moment. You cannot stand there and say, oh, freeze this moment. I want to really feel now. And then Mahayana Buddhism will tell you, no, there's actually no now. Everything just flows so quickly. So life is like that. Yourself is just like that. Your own sense of self is like that. Even anything that you can touch, you can feel, is like that. So nothing has intrinsic nature, right? It sounds a little bit profound, but anyway, keep that in mind. We will come back to this later in the course, and we explain more. Definitely, we'll come back more and more to this. Okay, and then another characteristic of Buddhism, of Maya Buddhism, is the Buddha is eternal, right? Compared to Theravada Buddhism, where we only see Shakyamuni Buddha, right, as the only statue, especially if you go to Thailand, you go to Myanmar, Sri Lanka, you always see Buddha Shakyamuni. All right, what happened if you step into a Chinese temple, like Chinese Buddhist temple? Then you will see I don't know, so many different Buddhas, right? Especially at the entrance, you will see a Buddha with a big belly. Okay, who is he? He's always at the entrance, laughing, welcoming people, very joyful, very kind. That is a Maitreya, right? So Buddha, the statue of the Buddha, different kind of Buddha actually appear in Mahayana Buddhism, right? And especially this become one of the central teaching in the Lotus Sutra in Mahayana Buddhism that we are going to talk about later on. So another characteristic is there are many Buddhas, and then they're eternal, right? In Mahayana Buddhism, what does that mean, right? We will talk about it later, right? So just bear in mind, this is a characteristic, and this is how Mahayana Buddhism become how it is. And then another important characteristic is we have something called the land of bliss, right? The Sukha Vativyuha. This is also one important aspect of Mahayana Buddhism. How does that work? Well, by devotion and faith, right? We believe that one can be reborn in the pure land of Amitabha Buddha. And then if you ask me that, what if I don't know Amitabha Buddha? What if I have another favorite? What if I like the Medicine Buddha? Yes, you can go to the land of Medicine Buddha, right? Which is also a pure land. So there are many other pure lands beside Amitabha Buddha pure land. And so this is also another important aspect of Mahayana Buddhism, because I believe that during your practice of, let's say, chanting the name of the Buddha, and then you're also imagining how the Pure Land will look like. So this will actually connect you with the vows made by the Buddha, and by doing so, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, somehow they can share their merit with you, and so karma is no longer like something you work individually, but collectively, right? A group of people, or let's say you go to the temple and then you chant the name very sincerely with the collective karma of the good karma of a group of people. You actually find it easier to have connection with the Buddha. So this is, of course, this is one practice. I'm not saying that this is the only practice in Mahayana Buddhism, but this is one of the very important one. And the goal of this practice is to become a bodhisattva, right? And to become a bodhisattva means that you don't want to get out of samsara so quickly. Right? According to some of the belief that, some people say that, you want to get out from the world, right? You want to stay from the world, that's why you study Buddhism. No, actually, the characteristic of Maya Buddhism is actually we tend to delay to become enlightened. Yeah, that's a main goal. stay, practice, because the path of practicing on the Bodhisattva is actually a very long path. It takes years and years, and sometimes you even make a vow to come back again and again to help people, right? Because you want to delay and entering the nirvana in order to stay in this world to help more people to get enlightened. So these are the characteristics, the three main characteristics of Mahayana Buddhism. Nothing has intrinsic nature, it's emptiness, it's empty. There are many Buddhas and many Bodhisattvas, and they're eternal, right? And then we have something called the land of bliss, where you can make a vow or make a wish to be reborn there and continue your practice. Okay? So far so good? Any question until now? Anyone need to take a break?
Can I ask one quick question?
Okay, please. I'll take one question.
Yes. So you mentioned that the Mahayana is more like a later invention, but from the Lotus, how to say that, Lotus Sutta, they already talk about all the different type of the Buddhas is actually can be unified to be actually the same one, right? So in that sense, should we consider the Mahayana it's actually already written in the original, the original word of Buddha?
Okay, what you mentioning is really okay. Thanks for the question. Anyway, yeah, I won't say that Mahayana was invented in a later period, but according to what we can find from the scriptures that we can see today, actually, even the earliest scriptures we can find, they are not from the Buddha's time. The earliest one we can find is like at least 300-400 years after the Buddha went into nirvana, achieved nirvana, right? Because at that time everything was passed, orally. So people remember it and then pass on to the students and pass on by generation by generation. So all the record we can see now are actually a few hundred years after the Buddha's nirvana. So of course that happened is when we start to have a collection, or we call the Tripitaka, all the Buddha's teaching together, and we start to collect. So there were quite a lot of confusion that happened during the collection of the Buddha's teaching. Many will maintain that, I'm the earliest, I am the more authoritative than yours. And Mahayana Buddhism will say, no, ours are actually spoke by the Buddha. And these have been a lot of course, there's no one actually know the answer for that, right? And Lotus Sutta, as you said, of course, you mentioned that these teachings came directly from the Buddha, and then it was already spoken by the Buddha. And a lot of proof in the text that says that. But what I'm saying is, I was trying to explain it from the historical point of view, because we know that there before something like when Mahayana Buddhism clearly appear in the world, in India, and we have the written record either on stones or on relics or on any kind of artifacts. The earliest record we found is actually in the beginning of the Common Era, right? Before that, we can say we might have Mahayana Buddhism. It's just it might be started by some monastics who have different thoughts of Bodhisattva, but in terms of historical record, this is what we can say is that yes, Mahayana Buddhism was actually a little bit later than, I would say, Theravada Buddhism. So historically, this is a case, yeah. But as you say, right, if you analyze a text, you need to really compare the text and you need to really find the actual part of the text that mentioned this, and that need a lot of research, and you need a lot of comparison to do that. So as I said, it doesn't matter whoever gets the earlier one. There's no point of fighting, right? Theravada, some Theravada Buddhists will tell you that, oh, the Pali text is the earliest, it was spoken by the Buddha. The Buddha spoke Pali. No, nobody knew what language the Buddha spoke. Nobody knew what dialect he used. We are just guessing, even the Pali language, actually, it was only a dialect in a small part of India. The Buddha might even never spoke any Pali. But anyway, historically, this is very interesting. That's why I encourage, everyone who are interested, find a book and start to read about it. And you will find fascinating. You will find our understanding of Buddhism, really very change. We become more open-minded. And actually for me, I don't really care much like who is earlier. Everybody is late anyway. All right. So yeah, thanks for the question. I think this is
thanks for the enlightenment.
This is how I should understand it. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next part, which I going to spend until the end of the class, is talk a little bit about something that's more relevant, to our life. One of the topic I want to talk about today is filial piety. Okay. I'm not sure if my understanding is correct. Filial piety, 孝顺, is a very Asian concept, right? I don't know if some of us are from non-Asian. Filial piety might seem, I don't know, newer or strange, but anyway, since most of us are familiar, I assume most of us are familiar with this, because especially in Mahayana Buddhism, filial piety plays a very important role, especially when Buddhism first started to spread in China. The Buddha's teaching actually has a lot of we call it overlapping, and also some conflicting ideas with the Chinese, especially in the Asian style of understanding of filial piety, right? Especially, I'm going to focus on when Buddhism started to spread to enter China, and when it met with Confucianism, right? What happened? These are something that I find quite interesting, and it may help us to appreciate Buddhism in this case. Okay, first of all, filial piety or 孝顺, right? 孝, just one word, 孝. Actually, is for Confucianism, the very idea of filial piety is in their core value, right? For them, actually, even for both Buddhism and Confucianism, morality is a foundation, right? So for both, actually, we also focus on filial piety, but how different are they? We'll talk about that. So for both, filial piety is an important ethical teaching in morality, right? So what are the similarities between Buddhism and Confucianism? First thing is in both, right, Buddhism and Confucianism, we talk about repaying a parent's debt. Well, that means that you're paying the kindness of the parents, right? It's not the actual financial debt. It's to pay back the kindness that because the parents brought us to this world and gave us education, gave us shelter, and so this is something that we need to pay back as a kind gesture to our parents. So this is the similarity that share between Buddhism and Confucianism. And then, of course, respect and reverence to the parents, and one other thing is that unfiliality. I'm not sure if this is even a word. Unfiliality. It means that, okay, the opposite of filial piety. Okay, you get what I mean. As one of the 5 grave crimes especially in Buddhism, right? It talks about if you really purposefully hurt your parents or even cause them great harm, then you will suffer a lot in the future. So this is some of the general idea on Buddhism and even Confucianism, that we should never ever harm the parents, right? So this is one of these are the similarities that share among us, and generalization of filial piety, right? Filial piety becomes a way to express our compassion, and of course compassion and also love to the people around us. So these are the similarities that share among Buddhism and Confucianism. No problem, right? But what I find more interesting is the differences. What is the difference? What do the Buddhists teach, and what do the Confucians believe regarding filial piety? Right. First thing is, let's see what's going on here. Okay. Filial piety as the highest norm versus karma. Okay, what is it? You mean for the Confucianism, filial piety is the highest level of morality, right? This is the core. This is the most important. And of course, the Buddhism, we talk about karma, right? Filial piety is linked to karma is action, right? Action and reaction. So filial piety is part of the action, which we call a wholesome action. So it's a karma. So it's not like the Confucianism that says that it's the highest form of action. And also the ways of repaying parents' debts is a little bit different in Buddhism and Confucianism. And another thing is filial piety as one-way duty versus a reciprocal way. Okay, we'll talk about that later. And the third one is the power of father and the virtue of mother. Okay, these are the two differences between Buddhism and Confucianism, right? Confucianism is pay more attention on the father side, but in Buddhism, right, you're quite surprised, you will find that it's the other way around. And Confucianism actually, avenging parents, and Buddhist compassion to enemies. So let's talk about it, right? A little bit more detail here. Okay, first, filial piety as the highest norm versus karma. And Confucianism, they consider filial piety, right, 孝顺 or 孝心 as the highest norm to be followed by all the members of the society. If you are from Asian country, you will know that in Confucianism, we say that the most important unit in a society is the family, right? And among the family, filial piety plays the most important value among all, because in order for the family to stay united, in order for the family to flourish, taking care of each other is the most important value. And filial piety, that means paying respect or being obedient, or paying higher respect to your parents is the most important value, and it lays the foundation of a family morality. Right? This is the Chinese belief when Buddhism started to enter China. But what does the Buddhists teach about filial piety? The Buddhism considered karma as a basis of ethics, right? Although it also thought that filial piety as the most important ethical conduct. Yeah, for Buddhists, we agree that yes, being kind, being respectful, being grateful to your parents, it is also the most important ethical conduct, right? But it is taught based on the understanding of the karma, right? Karma means that action, right? So how to behave correctly, and there are three principles, three ways that we can behave correctly according to the karma. One is morality, right? So this called a shira. Morality is a code of conduct. In Buddhism, we have a list, or we have many explanation of what should be done and what should not be done at the individual level or at the society level. So this is morality. And of course, we have concentration, the practice concentration. That means the samadhi, you do meditation, you calm our mind, we stay focused. Samadhi and wisdom is by practicing shila, morality and concentration, we will gain the understanding of what is the most beneficial way to benefit other people. So Buddhism, I would say, is more comprehensive in this way that when we talk about the moral ethics in a family, it not just focus on, being kind or being obedient to the parent, but it's based on the understanding of karma, which is established by the practice of morality, concentration, and wisdom. So I would say that in this way, the Buddhism understanding of filial piety in the family is not that, obedience is the most important, to the parents the most important. It's just like because of karma, because of what is right action, and what is a wise action, and what is concentration. So it's based on a Buddhist practice. So this is the first part. The difference between Confucianism understanding of filial piety and the Buddhist understanding of it. And the second part, okay, is the way of repaying the parents' debt. I mean, how we are being grateful to our parents. In Confucius, it's very clear. There are steps, okay? Just check if what you see in the list is correct or not. Okay, let's do a quick check. Okay, when parents are alive, right? What should the children do? They should, okay, respect and reverence. Okay, the parents, sure, no problem. And second one is made happy with all kind of support without worries when ill, right? We were taught that, especially in Asian country, we have to take care of our parents when they get ill, when they get old. The best is to live with them, don't let them live alone, right? And of course, we also have to advise without tiresome. So advice means that sometimes, we need to help our parents in some way that you're not like telling what they did wrong, but there's a wise way of giving suggestions and help the parents do their job better, I would say. So these are the in Confucianism, they really pay really high respect to the parents. So these are the core teachings. All right, this is when the parents are alive. This is what we should do. Of course, when parents pass away, of course, we need to, as a family, as a children, we need to have funeral ceremony, which is performed according to propriety. Right, the ceremony should either you follow the Taoism or either if you're Buddhist and then you follow the Buddhist way. So the ceremony is big. that is in Confucianism, right? So we still follow this custom. And their profession should be carried on so to make their names known to the future generations, right? That means that when, of course, in the Asian thought, especially in ancient China, when Buddhism started to enter China, it encountered something quite interesting. Is that the Chinese thinking is that especially the profession of the family and also the name, the surname of the family of the father should be passed on, right? So this is something that I think it is in our blood, right, to carry on the name of the of the family. So I remember there's a news in Japan recently that I think for a long time, I don't know since when, since modern time, in Japan, when a woman get married, the lady has to change a surname according to the husband. Right? They actually have to go to the municipal office and do the official transaction, change all your account names, even your driver license. Everything has to change. The last name has to follow your husband. Okay, what happened is, I think a few years ago, they started to change, right? Then they allow the woman to keep their own surname. Well, you might say, what's a big deal, right? For Japanese people, this is a big leap. It just shows that how important the family name is to the Asian culture, right? And of course, if we are from countries other than Japan, Singapore, you have Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, I'm sure, right? we have a choice. Even if we get married, a woman can keep usually we keep our own surname. It's because it's less trouble, isn't it? You don't have to go to the bank and change all the names, and you have to go to all the officers to change all your licenses. That is so much trouble. So we have a choice. Imagine you didn't have that option just few years ago in Japan. So it's something big is happening, right? So I mean, a world, like all the values keep changing. So this is, of course, is a big influence from Confucianism, and Confucianism thinking is very deep rooted in Japan and in China, as we see today. All right, so what is the Buddhist way of repaying the parents' debt, right? To pay respect. So Buddhism is very clear. It says that a child should minister to his parents 5 things: support them financially, physically, all right, emotionally, and second, they're performing their duties. Whose duties? The child. I mean, the children's duty, right? You need there are certain duties according to your own norm in your society. So this Buddhism is actually quite open in that there's no fixed rule that what you should do and what you should not do, but you perform your duty according to the norm of your society, not to an extreme way, right? And keeping the family tradition, making oneself worthy of the inheritance, and offering alms in honor of one's departed relative. So these are the Buddhist way of repaying the parents' debt, right? Offering alms in honor of one's departed relative. I think this is this is a strong Buddhist element in this. If you have someone, your relative will pass away, you actually offer alms on his behalf, so that we believe that this will help the deceased person to gain merit and to have a better life, have a future life. So you can see that Buddhism in this way that it's not about not really on a ceremonial or on a funeral or carry on with the family name, and because the Buddhist belief is that pay more attention on what you can do when a parent is still alive. Perform your duty, behave wholesomely, and carry on the family inheritance in terms of its value, and of course whatever skills that your parents pass to you. So this is how Buddhists look at repaying the parents' debt. All right, and another different way I think is quite interesting is that when talking about the duty, right, the parents to the children and the children to the parents, in Confucianism, especially in Chinese society, we always emphasize on the children's obligation to the parents. Am I right? You always hear people saying that, oh, 你做咩咁唔孝順㗎? Oh, why you don't really, like they're being obedient to your parents. How could you say it to your parents? But very seldom, or maybe in modern society we do, but very seldom we will tell the parents, 點解你對你仔女咁唔好㗎? Right? We take it as something like, we take it for granted, and of course, I mean, I'm speaking from the Confucian, like from the Chinese culture, right? We always say that as a child, as the children, what our duties are, right? And if you pay attention to some of the books that is in actually bookstore now, you go to popular bookstore, you go to different. I mean, if you look at the books, the bestseller books, especially on self-improvement, you see that many of them, I mean, majority of them nowadays, we're talking about psychology and self-help. It always talk about the children, the relationship between the children and parents. It's like, because when you're brought up in a Chinese family, especially a traditional family, it seems that there was so much trauma that for our generation, we start to see that the way our parents brought us up actually caused a lot of trauma. And I'm not sure whether it's true or not, but it seems that nowadays people are paying more attention. So now we are flipping it. Now we're flipping it over. We are trying to question how we should be a better parent, right? Instead of we used to ask ourselves how to be a better child, how to be a better children. Now we're talking about how to be a better parent. But traditionally, this is how the Confucius teach is how to be a good son, how to be a good daughter. Okay, and there's no little about responsibility and service of parents to the children, right? This is in Confucianism. But in Buddhism, if you look at Sigalovada Sutta, right, it teaches that children serve parents in 5 ways, and parents should also care for children in 5 ways. Oh, I forgot to put the 5 ways here. Well, you can use this keyword to find online. It says that it's reciprocal. The children has some responsibility to the parents, and the parents in response have 5 equivalent responsibility as well, and they are actually equally emphasized, right? So I would say when we talk about relationship, Buddhism, when it first came to China, this is what they encounter, right? They need to blend in a local belief of, does it change Chinese society? Well, I think somehow, yeah, maybe part of it has changed and have some influence. And the 4th one, okay, is about, okay, let's say, let me move this. The power of the father and the virtue of mother. This is interesting too. In Confucianism, the power of it always emphasizes on the power of the father, right? You hardly seen any discussion on the mother in Confucianism, maybe in Chinese society. This is true, right? Look at all the texts. I mean, look at the text in Confucianism, you will see that it always mention about the relationship between the father and the son, right? Not much is talk about the mother and the daughter, or the father and the daughter. So this is true, but in Buddhism, on the other hand, it emphasizes on mother's virtue. In especially that you look at in Samyutta Nikaya, it says that a mother is a friend at one's own home. And it also says that at one's home, a mother is the dearest parent. Right? Talk about the mother is the dearest parent. And it's so interesting that I'm not sure whether it's true in Malaysia or in Singapore, but I know some friends in Japan, especially some married men, like they told me that, before you get married, the relationship between you and your girlfriend is so different. The moment you sign a paper, you are married. And my Japanese friend told me that, well, that moment, the woman will become the finance minister. It's true. They have to control all their financial at home. And so I'm not saying that I pity them or what, but this is just to show that how the role of a woman and the role of a man or woman are so being well defined in Asian society, right? But I mean, Buddhism in a way is that when they talk about a woman is the dearest parent, it means, the tender side that shows by a female, in a sense that a mother actually as a female figure can be a softer and a better friend to anyone, especially to the family members. So Buddhist scriptures, interestingly, actually focus on this, right? It says that mothers are always placed before the fathers, like Mata Pitaro. This is in Sanskrit. So whenever parents are mentioned, always mothers before the father. It's interesting. And of course, if one of the most famous disciple of the Buddha is Sariputta, right? One of the main disciple. What does that mean? Sariputta means the son of Sari. Sari is his mother, right? So he's called Sariputta. It's not called his father's name. It is called by his mother's name. So just imagine in Buddha's time, in contemporary, woman actually has a very high status in a way that the relationship between the mother and the children is very being emphasized. That is actually the opposite to Confucianism. Right, the last part is about avenging parents and Buddhist compassionate enemies. In Confucianism, right, avenging father and mother is there's one shocking. I'm not sure whether it's the story or not. In one of the books in Confucianism, is called the Li Ji. Right, Li Ji says that with the enemy who has slain his father, one should not live under the same heaven. It says that if someone hurt or let's say kill your father, right, you should actually revenge right away. Okay, I'm not sure this is actually being practiced, but this is somehow the emphasizes on how we should protect and how we should, especially the family name, you should do whatever to protect your family's safety, and you have to go to the extent of killing your enemy who have hurt, especially your father, right? If you watch a lot of, I don't know, Chinese drama, especially not the modern one, like those with a kung fu one, you can see that, like the storylines always tell like this: oh, you are the one who hurt my father, or you are the one who killed my father. Now it really took me how many, I don't know, how many years, dozen of years to practice, and I keep remembering how to take the revenge on my enemy. At the end, I did. And then the story ended. So these are some of the thoughts that has been planted from Confucianism. That is, you should take whatever you could to protect the family, to the extent that even hurting your enemy. And for Buddhism, it is about compassion. Right? It teaches even compassion towards the enemies. Especially if you read the Dhammapada, it says that hatred, right, never ceases through hatred in this world. Through non-hatred alone does hatred cease. This is an eternal law. The eternal law is about having compassionate mind towards our enemies. Even our enemies could be the one who has hurt our family members. We have heard stories in the Buddha's teachings that talks about even the Buddha's previous life. The Buddha went to the extent of sacrificing his own self, right? There were stories about the Buddha when he was, let's say he was in the form of animals, like a deer, like he was even sacrificed himself in order to save the whole clan of deers, right? Or sometimes even to save other animals, he will sacrifice himself to be eaten by other stronger animals. So this shows that the compassion in Buddhism is so strong, is that it even prevents us to make any action, like to take any action that is to have the result of have the mind of revenge on our enemies. So the very purpose of practicing compassion is to reduce our hatred, is to even to generate compassion towards our enemies. This is very hard to do. We all know that nowadays you are not going to stop a war by starting another war, right? Well, this is exactly what we are doing in the world. Sometimes they say, "Oh, I need to kill you in order to stop you from killing other people." So for Buddhism, actually, this logic this doesn't make sense, because by creating more hatred, it just doesn't stop the hatred, right? The only way to stop the hatred is by compassion. So this alone, today we just take the part from the filial piety. We talk about what happened when Buddhism started to being introduced to China, and how the idea, like the conflicting ideas, how they met each other, how the conflicting ideas they started to blend to each other, and how two ideas become what we see today in the Chinese Mahayana Buddhism. You have to remember that the idea of the filial piety is still very strong, especially in the Chinese community. It doesn't matter whether you are born in an American Chinese family, or whether you are born in Indonesian Chinese family, or you're born in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong. Actually, we all share this same belief system. It's as if it is in our blood, right? Filial piety is just only one value that we share. So what are the others? There's so many other values that we still share, especially for us who are from the Asian Chinese culture. So by understanding how Buddhism was introduced into our culture and how it slowly changed and shifted our value, our own value, either it's from the family, starting from the family to the society and to the country as a whole. So filial piety is something I think is very interesting because it really separates us from who we are. For me, I also, well, from my own experience is I also went through some difficulties and also some, I would say, some clashes in value when I decided to become a monastic, when I started to become a monk. As you can understand, because I was brought up in a Chinese traditional Chinese family, and I was carrying with me a lot of expectations and a lot of responsibilities were given on me by my family. And when the moment I told them that, oh, I want to become a monk and I'm not going to get married, I'm not going to carry on with my father's surname, I changed my surname from Yong, Y-O-N-G, to Shi, S-H-I. I think, well, now I think about it, like, if you are a parent, like, how would you feel about that? Especially for my very traditional family. So there was a clash, there was really a clash of moral values between my belief in Buddhism and the cultural background which is carried on for generations in my family. So I went to the stage, and why I'm mentioning this is because I could really see how the Buddhist value slowly changing my understanding of who I was, like who I thought I would be so rigidly. Like I was brought up, I was given like really high expectation. I was given the best education my parents could, my parents could give me. I did, and I did so badly in my studies. So I was almost following, a dream like, how I would say, kind of like, yeah, it's almost like a dream that would come true if I really follow my parents' plan step by step. I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you tonight. I would be enjoying my life a lot more. No, just kidding. So what happened? How we understand Buddhist teachings, and how are we willing to shake our rigid understanding of what should be done and what should not be done. So sometimes the value of the Buddhist studies and our cultural value clash. Many times it clash. So under that circumstances, well, what will you do? Right. For me, it took me a few years to actually make my parents understand why I want to choose this path and what am I going to do, and how I was going to do it. And at the end, at first, what I found at the end was that, not at the end, after a few years, was that actually what we understood to be something so rigid, especially that my father used to tell me that no, you have to get married, you have to get a good job, you got to get me some grandsons or grandchildren, whatever. I thought it was something, to be like it almost become my something that I had to follow. It's something that crafted in my mind. But once I broke it and once I chose another path, initially it was like a great earthquake to myself, to a relationship with myself and my parents. But slowly I came to realize that even that idea wasn't so strong in my parents. My parents started to feel that, well, as long as their son, that me, is doing what I enjoy, as long as I've planned for my future, as long as I won't have difficulties doing my life, and when they see me actually doing what I'm enjoying, and I actually can have some influence on other people, well, they really feel proud about that. So what I'm saying is that just like what happened in about 2,000 years ago when Buddhism started to spread among the Chinese society in China, of course, there were many clashes of moral values, like how they blend together. And if I look from my own perspective, the same thing happened to me too. When I started learning Buddhism and my family values, they clash. And of course, with patience, with a little bit of I would say just patience and use a little softer kind of voice or way of communication. I think at the end we will find that what we want is actually the betterness. I mean, for all people, it's not just about what you have to follow. It's about what is the best way that you can make the best out of your life to benefit other people. So I believe this will be the most fundamental need of our human nature. Yeah. So anyway, so I think that's all I need to share about the teachings of filial piety and Buddhist teachings, to come back to understanding of how the Chinese Buddhism started in China and how we would how we will see ourselves in the face of Buddhism. Okay. All right, 10 minutes ago, I received a message saying that I got 15 minutes. Now I do have another 5 minutes, I believe. Okay. Louis or Sharon, do you have anything?
Yes, no, I don't receive any question.
Okay.
But Shifu, I was just thinking about this. Just now there was one part that you're saying that the children have to, the profession should be carrying on to make their names known to the future generation. What
Yeah.
happens if the father is selling like Cai Tao Gui one, then the children have to continue?
Hey, isn't that a common thing that happened? Right? I met many families, like even not Cai Tao Gui, whatever, 聚场粉, wanton mee, like their family, like they're actually doing for generation, the third, fourth generation, and they need to carry on. Especially in Ipoh, I know that I have a good friend who run a very famous Dao Fu Fa, like what the English Dao Fu Fa? Bean curd, whatever they call, right? They're selling it for the third generation, and my friend now, he is already the tauke of it. He is like a very big boss. He run the store like a chain store. I'm like, oh my goodness, they are actually, they carry on the profession, and then they make their family name known in the future generation. I don't know. What do you think? You think we should or we shouldn't?
But what happens if the children doesn't, do the Chai Tao Gui as good as the father? Then
Well,
it's
if you
going
don't
to ruin
sell
the business.
don't sell Cai Tao Gui, then you sell something else, or you sell 聚种粉. Is it okay? I don't know. I mean, it really up to the personal choice. Of course, I also met families that the parent tell them, oh, this profession is too hard. It might not have. It will have a very hard life, we work long hours. So let's not do that. There are also family who say the same thing. So I think it's really up to individual. Yeah. Of course, the Chinese thinking. I'm talking about Chinese thinking. We always feel that should carry on. This is a family business, right? We should carry on. I think it might be changing nowadays. Yeah.
It should be changing, bro.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's almost time. Let's. Okay, I'd like to do very brief dedication to end today's session. Right, I'd like you to first feel yourself again, sitting comfortably on a chair. Feel, is there any tension on your upper body, your neck, shoulders, your lower back, your feet, all the way to your toes? Come back to our senses. Feel our feet touching the floor. Move your toes a little bit. Tell ourselves, come back to right here, right now. Come back to our senses. Slowly, very slowly, take a deep breath. Breath in. Breath out. One more time. Breath in. Breath out. Okay, I'd like you to join your palms together. We like to dedicate the merit we have accumulated today by listening, by paying attention, by sharing the Dhamma about how to understand Buddhism better in achieving a more compassionate life in our daily activities. We like to share whatever merits we have generated, to share with those who are suffering from floods, suffering from natural disasters, suffering from wars, suffering from hunger, famine, suffering from the heat, from the environment changes, and also to ourselves who still have our mental suffering from time to time, either they are from work, from relationship, and from our misunderstanding about the truth nature of ourselves and our surroundings. We wish we are free from physical suffering, free from mental suffering. We are at ease and at peace all the time. May you all be well and happy. May you all be well and happy. May you all be well and happy. Thank you for joining us tonight.